Chapter 9, Cattails and Conversation. Sally couldn't remember the last time she'd had so much fun. With 2 pieces of bundt cake in her tummy, blueberries on her tongue, and milk in a cold glass to wash them down, Sally was happier than she could remember ever being before. The best part was Mercury in her lap, purring contentedly as she stroked him with her fingertips. On the ground next to Sally's chair was the empty can of ocean-white fish and tuna that Mercury had eaten with the help of Miss Priss, who was now lounging on the rock by the great lion statue. Lucy and Sally had been chatting non-stop while they ate. Lucy, who had lived 77 years, knew a lot about a lot of things. She was really, really smart and strong. Although she wasn't much taller than Sally, she had raised 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, built 2 houses, her husband Henry was a carpenter, and gotten 1 college degree just last year, Bachelor of Arts, Humanities. The best part was all the things they had in common. They both loved cats, of course. They were both middle girls, they both hated spinach, and they both absolutely loved blueberries. As Sally put the last spoonful of blueberries in her mouth, she wondered about Lucy's sisters. They were both dead now, but sounded like they were a lot of fun when they were little. Lucy was writing in a big scrapbook. She looked up as she finished. "There, Mercury's story is now entered in my cattails journal. All we need now is a picture of you and him to document your heroic Super Sally rescue." Mercury looked up and seemed to smile at the mention of his name. "Yes, sir, mister, you are my 37th cat rescue," Lucy cooed to him. "Now we just need to find you a good home." Sally's heart leapt within her, but she quickly squashed the hope of trying to burst out. She had been asking her parents for a cat for the better part of her 8 years on the planet, and the answer had always been no. Sally couldn't bear to hope for this precious little furball to become her own. It would hurt way too bad if it didn't happen. So she chose to be happy right then, enjoying his company and soft fur at her fingertips. "So are all the cats you have rescued in that book?" Sally asked, changing the subject. Lucy seemed to lighten up like a Christmas tree. She hugged the book to herself and smiled. "Yes, I started rescuing cats right after I moved into this house 2 years ago. My oldest son bought it as a fixer-upper and asked me to live in it for him. Wasn't that sweet? He's a good boy. He knew I needed to get away from the house Henry and I lived in for so many years. This place was a great change for me. Of course, if I had known he was going to leave me living in an orange house, I would have never agreed," Lucy said mischievously. "Last month he put new tiles on the roof, and it turned the house into a giant pumpkin. The roof before was a beautiful light brown. He keeps telling me he's going to paint the outside of the house tan, but he hasn't done it yet. So I get to live surrounded by orange." Sally laughed hard. A little too hard. But it felt good. Lucy joined in and they laughed and laughed, just enjoying the silliness of an orange house. After a few minutes they both took a deep breath and sighed. "I needed that," Lucy said. "Laughter is good for the adrenals." Sally didn't know what adrenals were, but agreed anyway. "So, can I see the cattails book?" Sally asked, scooping Mercury back onto her lap. He had jumped off during the laughter, not exactly sure how to handle Sally's shaking body. "Of course," Lucy said, laying the book on the table and turning to the front page. There was a picture of an old man in a military uniform smiling at them. Under his picture it said, "This book is dedicated to Fred Baker, who inspired the rescues in the first place." Sally looked at Lucy, asking the question with her eyes. Lucy knew Sally wanted to know the story, and she jumped right into telling it. "My good friend's husband, Fred," Lucy pointed to the picture, "was a soldier who fought in France during World War II. The story goes that he was in a foxhole one night and it was very, very cold. Fred was having a hard time staying warm until a scraggly old calico cat jumped into the foxhole to say hello. The calico, that Fred immediately called Spitfire, kept him warm all night and gave him some hope in a scary situation. The next morning Spitfire jumped out of the foxhole and went on his way. Fred made it safely through the war, and when he came home, He opened a shelter for cats that his wife still runs to this day. That's where I take the cats I rescue if I can't find a place for them on my own." "And that story is what inspired you to rescue cats?" Sally asked. "Well, I loved cats when I was a girl, and had a lot of them on the farm where I grew up. My sisters and I used to make up songs and stories about them. But when I married Henry, I couldn't keep a cat because he was horribly allergic to them. So when I moved into this house, I adopted Miss Priss to keep me company. Then Rambo came along and invited himself in, and—" "What?" Sally interrupted. "How did he do that?" "Well, I like to keep the glass sliding door open for Miss Priss during the day so she can go out whenever she pleases. And one day Rambo came in to explore and eat the dry cat food in the laundry room. I found him laying spread eagle on the kitchen floor and loved him immediately. He must have liked me too, because he's been around ever since." "And what about Bishop?" Sally asked. "How did you get him?" "He was my first rescue. I found him as a kitten, hiding behind the tire of my old Oldsmobile during a rainstorm. He was easy to scoop up and relaxed in my arms immediately. I brought him home, and he became part of my family." "Why don't you keep all of the cats you find?" Sally asked. Lucy laughed out loud at the question. "Good Lord, child, the county would have my hide if I kept all those cats. There are rules about how many cats we can keep in our homes. If I have more than 3 adult cats for too long, my grumpy neighbor 2 doors down will call the authorities and have them write me a ticket." "I think I met her," Sally said. "She's not very nice." Lucy grinned, but didn't say anything else about the old lady with the walker. "Enough about that. Let's look at some cattails." Lucy turned the page and pointed out Bishop as a kitten. He was all tangled up in some yellow yarn, and Sally laughed out loud at the image. For the next 2 hours Lucy told stories, and Sally listened intently, enjoying every feline moment. All the while she gently stroked Mercury's silver fur and enjoyed his warm, curled-up body on her lap as he lay snoring softly. It was midday by the time Lucy got to the last page of her book, where all the info about Mercury was freshly written. "And here we are to the best story of all, the Super Sally rescue," she grinned. "But it looks like Super Sally's back to her normal self." Lucy looked at the sweater and blanket draped on the back of the chair. "It is too hot to be Super Sally right now," Sally said, looking down at her tank top. "Besides, I love this outfit," she said. "Me too," Lucy said, looking at her own cat shirt. Just then Sally's tummy grumbled loudly. Lucy laughed and said, "Look at the time, high noon already. Would you like to stay for lunch?" Sally realized that she had been away from home for almost 24 hours. She thought about her mom and realized she still hadn't talked to her in person. She wondered if her mom was frantic, out searching the streets for her right now. Sally didn't feel worried exactly, but knew she needed to try calling her mom again to check in. "Do you mind if I use your phone again?" Sally asked. "Go right ahead, darling," Lucy replied. "I'll go get the camera to take your picture." Sally scooped up Mercury and carried him into the dining room, putting him carefully on a cushioned dining room chair. He stirred a bit, then settled back to sleep. As Sally walked to the phone, Lucy put down the tray from their breakfast and walked into the other room. Sally reached up and grabbed the handset of the pink phone. She wasn't exactly sure how her mom would react, but was eager to connect with her. The phone rang twice. Then Mom's familiar voice came on. "Hello?" Sally started to cry. She wasn't exactly sure why. She wiped her nose with her wrist and took a deep breath. "Hi, Mom. It's Sally." There was silence on the other end. Sally heard a sniffle and knew Mom was crying too. Sally cried harder. "Mom, I'm so sorry that I let Wrinkle out when you told me not to. I'm sorry I snuck out of the house, and I'm sorry I didn't tell you where I was going. I'm okay. Everything's okay. I just wanted to see if I could find the crazy cat lady. And I did it. I found her. I'm at her house right now. She is so cool, Mom. And there's this cat." Sally stopped. She didn't want to talk about Mercury quite yet. There was still silence on the other end, and Sally knew what she needed to do. "Mom, I am so sorry. Do you forgive me?" she whispered. Mom's calm voice came back quickly. "I love you, Sally Diane Morris, and yes, I forgive you." Sally let out a sigh of relief. I know I'll be on timeout forever when I get home, Sally reflected. But can I please have lunch with Lucy? She needs to take my picture for her cattails book, and then I'll come home, I promise. There was another silence. Then a simple yes drifted over the line. Do you want me to come get you, Mom asked. No, I think I'd like to walk home. I have a lot to think about, Sally replied. I know the way, she added. Okay then, I'll see you after lunch, Mom said, and hung up the phone. Sally put the pink handset back on the holder and tried to figure out why Mom had let her stay. She had expected to get yelled at and put on timeout immediately, but her mom didn't do that. Weird. But this whole adventure had been pretty weird, Sally thought. Just then, Lucy walked in with her camera and took a picture. You could ride all the way to Florida on that lip, Lucy said. Sally was distracted. What did you say? You're pouting. Is everything okay? Lucy asked. Oh, I'm just deep in thought, Sally said. That was my thinking face. Lucy laughed. Why don't you hold up Mercury and show me your superhero face? Sally grinned broadly, scooped up Mercury off the dining room chair and held him up to her face. Lucy snapped several more pictures, catching Mercury in a yawn or two, then put the camera down on the counter. Sally apologized to Mercury for waking him up, then put him back on the chair. So, is everything okay with Mom? Lucy asked again. Mom said I could stay for lunch, Sally answered. Okay then, go wash up and get your lunch face on, replied Lucy. I'll make nachos. Sally wandered to the bathroom, still wondering about Mom's reaction, or lack of it. But when she got to the sink, she was delighted to see Mercury using the litter box on the ground by the toilet. She chatted with him while she freshened up and he did his business. Then they both walked back to the kitchen happily. So, tell me about yourself, Lucy said, spooning salsa onto Sally's nachos. What brought you to my door this morning? Sally found herself telling the story from the very beginning. She started at the timeout in her room and explained how she climbed out the window and down the twisty tree, then got the idea to find the crazy cat lady, and meandering through the park, playing with the palm frond and getting lost. Lucy looked very concerned when Sally told about wandering lost through the neighborhood after leaving Orangey, but was relieved when she mentioned God's place. I just started going there with my daughter last month, she said. I met the cutest 3 boys. Their mom is friends with my daughter. They are going through a divorce and really need some love right now. Sally was amazed. Was the middle boy named Sam? She asked. I think it was, Lucy said. All 3 boys had good Bible names. What does that mean? Sally asked. Bible names. Names of people from the Bible. Sally still had a blank look on her face, so Lucy continued. The Bible tells stories of people from long ago who were friends with God. Samuel, which Sam is short for, was one of them. He was only a boy when God started speaking to him. He told the people what God said and became a very good leader when he grew up. Wow, cool, Sally said. Sam and his brother Elisha go to my school. I don't know if they're friends with God, though. Lucy smiled, and Sally went on with her story, telling about the orphans in Guatemala and the videos of the boy with no arms and legs that Gwen showed her on the computer. Sally was kind of embarrassed when she got to the part about feeling really afraid and running out of the church, but Lucy didn't seem bothered by her freak out. Lucy was very impressed by Sally's creative idea to sleep in a doghouse, and was very proud of her for being so brave and courageous. When Sally got to the part about her dream of the kitties turning into monsters and holding her down, Lucy looked worried and deep in thought. Sally explained that she cried out for Daddy's help and then woke up. That made Lucy smile. And when Sally told about calling Ollie Ollie Oxenfree for God to come out of hiding, Lucy laughed out loud. That's the best prayer I've ever heard, Lucy said. Sally smiled. What's prayer? She asked. Prayer is simply talking to God, Lucy explained. I bet you made him smile with that prayer, too. Maybe so, Sally said. It felt like he poured warm honey all over me, and I fell right back to sleep. Then I dreamed that I was leaning on my daddy's chest and listening to his heart. He danced with me and then told me that he loves me. What a great dream, Lucy exclaimed. Sometimes when I dream of my dad, It is God showing me something about himself. Sounds like God is talking to you, Sally. Maybe I should start calling you Samuel." Sally's face got hot, and she wasn't sure why. Could have been the thought of her new friend, Sam, or maybe embarrassment at Lucy's praise. "So, how did you get from the doghouse to here?" Lucy asked, bringing Sally's thoughts back to her story. "Oh, I was just about to backtrack toward home when I heard the recess chime from school. I started running toward it and found myself at the corner. Then I saw Bishop, on the kickball field, and he led me to you." Sally paused. "I almost turned and ran when I got to your house. I was afraid you were really crazy." "But you didn't feed that thought. I'm so proud of you," Lucy said enthusiastically. "What?" Sally was confused. "You didn't feed your grumpy thought. If you had fed it, it would have grown, and you would have run away. You must have fed a happy thought or two." "Lucy, you lost me. What are you talking about?" Sally said. "Thoughts are kind of like dogs or cats or bunnies or whatever critter you like. The one you feed is the one that will live and grow and have power in your heart. If you feed happy, lovely thoughts, then happy, lovely feelings will grow inside you and have power. But if you feed grumpy or fearful thoughts, those will gain power and they'll usually not be very nice to you." "Do you think it was a grumpy thought that made the kitties in my dream turn into monsters?" asked Sally. "Maybe so," replied Lucy. "Have you been feeding any grumpy ideas lately?" Sally instantly thought of her new word, Spisters, and what it stood for: stupid, special needs sisters. She confessed her grumpy Spisters thoughts and how jealous and frustrated she felt toward her sisters sometimes. Lucy helped Sally look at the good things about her sisters and find happy thoughts about them. Sally really liked the idea of feeding happy thoughts and made it a game. Pretty soon, she and Lucy were laughing and talking and making up songs about their amazing sisters. Lucy even sang one that she and her sisters had made up as kids. That led to Lucy pulling out pictures of her and her sisters as children. Sally really enjoyed looking at the old brown and white images, even though she thought people back then dressed really funny. As Sally took her last bite of nachos, she let out a sigh. "I told Mom I would come right home after lunch, but I'm having so much fun." "Oh, darling, you need to honor your word and go home when you told your mom you would. But tell you what, I'll write my phone number and address down for you, and you can come back and visit me in Mercury any time," Lucy said. Sally loved that idea and agreed wholeheartedly. While Lucy wrote her info down, Sally picked up Mercury and told him how much she loved him. He seemed to understand her and swatted at her nose playfully in response. Lucy slipped the paper inside a plastic bag along with Sally's blue blanket with the pink hearts on it and Gwen's royal blue sweater. Sally reluctantly handed Mercury to Lucy while she took the plastic bag. She put her arms through the handles and made it a backpack, which Lucy thought was very creative. She took back Mercury and they walked silently down the hall and out the front door. "It has been such a pleasure being with you," Lucy said. "Thank you for choosing to come find this crazy cat lady. I'm so glad you did." Sally was grinning from ear to ear. "I'm glad I did too." Sally kissed Mercury one last time, then reluctantly handed him to Lucy. Then she threw her arms around Lucy's neck and hugged her tight. "You're so cool. I'll come see you if Mom ever lets me off time out." "Mercury and I will be waiting," said Lucy. Sally let go, petted Mercury again, and walked through the little gate onto the sidewalk. With a wave, she walked quickly to the corner. Before turning out of sight, Sally looked back at Lucy's house one more time. Lucy was standing on the sidewalk with Mercury in her arms. She raised his little silver paw in a wave and then blew kisses from her own hand and mouth. Sally waved vigorously with both hands and blew kisses back, and then did her very best superhero takeoff run down the sidewalk and out of Lucy's sight. She slowed down when she got to the twisty trees and chain-link fence behind her school, and stopped to catch her breath. Suddenly, a black and white fur ball jumped out from the tree and onto the sidewalk in front of her. "Bishop!" Sally squealed. "You came to say goodbye." Bishop squinted a nod, and then rubbed himself against Sally's right Batman boot. Sally rubbed him behind the ears until he purred happily. Okay, Bishop, I've got to go, Sally said reluctantly. You go back home and take care of Mercury for me, okay? He nodded again and bolted off suddenly toward home. That made Sally laugh out loud, and she stood there for a moment, smiling. Happy thoughts were swimming around inside her, and it felt really good. Then she remembered her promise to Mom, and she knew she had to go. Slowly she turned back around, and with a big sigh, Sally started walking towards home.